Okay, Lola, go.
Okay, Emma and I would like to talk about the theme of travel. We both had the chance to travel alone, and indeed we have a lot to say in relation to the series of Hofstede. We have both been in Africa. Emma was in Senegal, and I went in Togo. And we would like to share example of the series we discovered, and also our personal feelings. We learned a lot about cultures and even about ourselves, and the fact of discovering and sharing allowed us to grow and open our minds even more.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Emma.
Okay. Before I tell you about what I would like to teach you, I will explain the context of my experience. For school, I went to Senegal for a 2-month internship. Senegal is the most western country in Africa. We can see that on the map. It's some of the picture when I went in Senegal. I will only talk about personal example. My personal example are related to the cultural dimension, long vs short-term orientation. For me, short-term orientation is, for example, when you think about the present. For example, you do something and you expect quick results, either the same day or the next day. And for me, long-term orientation is when you think about the future. For example, when you do something and you expect results after a certain time, after a month, for example. I felt this difference between France and Senegal. Be careful, my opinion is based on my personal experience, on what I have lived and what I have observed and heard. Of course, not of all people in a country act in the same way. I did my internship in the Association Zero Waste Senegal. Our goal was to encourage people to change some of the products they use for sustainable products, better for the environment and better for the wallet. Oh. This is my example. In the association, one of our arguments is to save money. The water bag is called mbous in Senegal. Entonces it's the word in Senegal. And in Senegal, many people use this because the tap water is not drinkable. While we were raising awareness, we tried to explain that argument economic at the people. And for example, so I will illustrate the examples. Boost cost 15 francs CFA. Francs CFA is the money in Senegal. And the gold at the right cost 2,500 francs CFA. During the example, we try to explain that if you buy 2 mbous per day and pay 100 francs CFA, after 55 days, you will have paid 2,500. At the end of 25 days, you will have made your investment with this for the Senegalese. But the Senegalese see things more in the present than in the future. It's my opinion. So the majority buy mbous because when you buy it, it's cheaper. This is what I observed, and my tutor, whose name is Aurélie, who is French but have lived in Senegal for more than 15 years, also observed this and has the same point of view. However, in my example, you have to take into account that the Senegalese have less money in general, that it's therefore also more complicated for them to have to pay the 2,500 francs CFA at once. In general, a French person can have more facility to pay 2,500 francs CFA at once. The woman on this picture's name's Kumba. At me, it's happening to us a bad adventure in Senegal. My boyfriend and I had more than 8,000 pesos stolen. When we returned to our place in Senegal, Kumba, the woman we were living with told us, "Tomorrow this man who stole from you will have nothing left. We will have spent all the money." It is the Senegalese. If they have money, they spend it. It is Kumba, a Senegalese woman, who told me that. All Senegalese are not like that, of course, because she, for example, is not like that, but the majority is like that. I took this example of money to talk about the difference in vision the Senegalese see more in the present and the French more in the future. From my point of view, this corresponds to a different approach to one of Hofstede's cultural dimension, long versus short-term orientation. I have another things to speak. My development teacher, who is Congolese, who comes from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and then from Africa, told us a phrase: Westerners have the words and Africans have the time. This is really the feeling I have when I went to Africa. As we Westerners were preoccupied with other things we have to do, that we don't have time. And on the contrary, Africans take the time to talk, to walk in the street, for example. I will tell you an anecdote. At the end of my internship in Senegal, I was watching people in the street and I saw a man walking fast. I was surprised and wondered what was wrong with this walking fast, with him walking fast. And normally, and for example, if I see a man who walking fast in the street in Francia, I I don't I don't be surprised. Now we will listen to Lola.
Okay, for me, I spent 2 months in Togo. It's in West. It's situated in West Africa, also, and it was for my internship for my school also. And and I have also to teach reading and writing to children who have no access to education. But this project finally lasted 2 weeks because I had problems with the director of the association. So I changed of association, who called the DGS Togo, where I also taught to read and write to children, and where I also worked in an orphanage. And I wanted to say that the African culture in Togo is very marked. There are different religions, Christianism, Muslim religion, but in the Togolese people are still attached to their ancestral beliefs. There are many fetishists, wizards, magicians, and doctors who are in connection with God. And there are different ancestral methods to which the Togolese are attached. In Togo, despite the different religions, the human being is at the heart of daily life. For example, families often live together, whether is with the grandparents, with parents and children who are married. This is very in each family. It's like that. Also, Togo is a very poor country, and collectivism is at the heart of their culture. There is a lot of mutual aid. For example, if someone on the street needs help, he can ask to anyone in the street, and people will help him, whether it is for money or for a broken car or simply to help cooking also. Even so, they help each other. Another example, they call each other also auntie or uncle with everyone in the street, and that creates closeness with every people. And for about individualism, I think in Togo, that's my point of view too, that doesn't really exist when I compare to France, where people are very individualistic, very cold. There is no notion in France of a mutual aid as in Togo. And people in France are very centered on themselves and think about their personal interest before all, and there is not that in Togo. An example also of my trip to Togo is when I caught paludism, malaria. It is a disease of that is transmitted by a mosquito, and it is a little bit dangerous. And all the people of the association where I was here for me, and it was really important for them to be here for me. And in France, for example, to be treated is free, and in Togo it's very expensive, and they have the and in Togo they have the notion of the importance of life, and I think in France it's not the same mentality. And people of the association will help me. Many of them did not go to work to help me because I was not well. And also work is very important for them and to gain their life because they don't have a lot of money. And there is a real notion of mutual aid and collectivism, like I said. And as far as I wanted to talk a little bit also of the relation between man and woman, because there is total inequality. The role of woman is to stay at home and cook, take care of the laundry, of the children, while the men work. And for example, for that I have an example. When for example, we were 3 women in the association, and there was only men. And when we went for a drink in a bar, for example, there were only women, and there is no man in all the bar, and that's the case each time. And there is strict rules about that. Women in the house and man can do what they want. Emma, you continue or you wanted I continue?
Yes, if you want. So my personal conclusion is I have learned many things while traveling in Senegal, and I have experienced a different approach to time, to short a long-term perception, and this allows me to better understand some people because I don't only have my vision, I also know another visions. Lola?
For me, I think that the importance of travel is essential in everyone's life. If you whether we travel far or near, just the fact of leaving our comfort zone is important to know ourselves better, and the fact of discovering of as a culture totally different from ours, of having to adapt to a culture that is unknown to us, is something that can be learned and that can only enrich us personally. And this trip has taught me a lot about myself and about my relationship with others. And traveling allows us to grow up and grow faster, and can put us in an uncomfortable situation where we have to manage alone, and afterwards we can only be more proud of ourselves. And the encounters that I make, or the landscapes that we see, are unforgettable moments that will always remain in my memory.
Thank you very much for your presentation, girls. I hope now that everybody has questions. And this was really, really interesting. I know that let's help me give Lola and Emma big hands for these wonderful presentations, because
Thank you.
of course, one of the objectives of these presentations, as I said in the instructions, is for us to learn from you. And I think we just learned many things from you, because I can, and everybody can read things about Senegal or any country in Africa, but it's not the same as living there, which you did for at least 2 months. And I really appreciate you sharing your experiences. So questions you may have, comments, feedback, students that you may have for Lola or Emma before I start with my questions. Come on, this is your chance to ask, to comment, feedback. What did you think about this? Did you learn anything? Come on. I don't know why you're so quiet, guys. You're usually always speaking. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead, Diana Montiel, and then Diana Cortez. Go ahead.
It's not a question, it's more like a comment. First of all, it was excellent and great. The presentation, I really like it. And my comment is that Paula and I are going to talk about the Qatar situation. And we're having, well, we had some troubles like finding the right information and not falling into stereotypes, because there was a lot of misunderstandings and fake news and all that stuff that can make like a little bit subjective the presentation and the information. And it was great that you had the chance to have this experience and being able to be there and experience yourself all these cultural shocks. So yeah, I think that it was a great opportunity to go to Senegal and Togo. And yeah, congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much for your
Thank
comment.
you.
Yes, go, Diana Cortez.
Can you hear me Well, really, okay, thank you. As Diana said, it's very interesting. Like we're talking about the cultural boundaries, but when you leave that, it's like very total different. So my question is for both of you: what skills or abilities or social skills you must have or develop to go to know another or live in another country with totally different visions of yeah, the culture.
Yes, did you understand the question, Emma and Lola? What social skills or what skills you should develop in order to be able to travel to countries like the ones you travel to? Is that your question, Diana? Yes, do you understand? Okay, go ahead.
Like what I have learned in Senegal with the social relationship.
Yeah, like for example, like being empathetic could be one, like being like open to know whatever you're going to expect, like those kind of skills or something like that.
Me personally, I learn more to see that like people have difficulty for speak or for speak about their idea, what they think, and because on this before, for example, I do my internship in the association and I have to work with como voluntaria Senegalese and first of ¿Puedo hablar en español?
It's okay, keep going. You're doing a great job. Whatever, Spanish, English, keep going.
Ok, gracias. Primero, yo creo que la persona como no quiero trabajar o no quiero participar a las actividades y después con el tiempo entiendo que las personas tienen miedo como de hablar porque en Senegal los senegalíes aprenden mucho como las palabras como a repetir todo el tiempo, conoces muy bien la canción, pero entonces es muy bien, pero hay una otra parte, es que ellos tienen más como complicación para la discusión, ¿entiendes? Entonces sí, yo entiendo cómo a ver más las dificultades de las personas y entiendo más.
Te volviste más empathic. You became more empathic towards those differences in how people express themselves. Yes, kind of. Did we understand, Emma, a little bit? Okay, very good. And Lola, what would you say are some skills that we would need if we want to travel to a country like Togo, for example?
I think I see that in Togo, you have to be very, I don't know how you can say, mobile. You know, you have to adapt yourself every time to everything that can be the food, that can be stupid, but in Togo, it's very, como en México, pimiente, en Francia no hay eso. Just the food, the person, the language, you have to adapt yourself to everything, but it is very, very interesting. And yeah, me, I like it.
Do you actually guys remember? Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Actually, do you remember one of Hofstede's dimension talks about how comfortable we feel with uncertainty or how uncomfortable we feel with uncertainty? And I think many of the things also I saw in the case of both presentations, Emma and Lola, that also I believe in countries like the ones you visited, they are used to uncertain things. So they learned to survive. They learned to be comfortable with uncertainty because they don't know what's going to happen. And actually that is also very related to the long-term, short-term that you were explaining, Emma. saying that if they have money, they spend it. It's kind of like in Mexico, and it's not, again, we're not generalizing. And I'm so glad, Diana Montiel, you emphasize the labeling and the not generalizing, because of course there are different regions, and even in the same city, there are different areas and cultures and ideas and traditions. But what you just said, remember when we talked, and again, it's not judging, but it's understanding the long-term, short-term cultural dimension. Remember when we have said, for example, that in little villages in Mexico, for example, even if they don't have money to eat next week, families will spend all the money they can, or they even borrow money to celebrate quinceañeras, for example. They even borrow money to celebrate baptisms for a baby. And they organize these huge celebrations in which all the village has to be invited. And what are they going to eat next week? Nobody knows. So because we want, we get used to getting immediate satisfaction, immediate response, and it's hard for many cultures to think in long term. And I think you said it, Emma, when they said if they stole money, they don't have the money anymore next day because they spend the money, because that's short term too. But I saw many other cultural dimensions, not only the ones you expressed. And I only have one more comment for everyone, guys, for everyone, because I'm starting to understand that maybe I wasn't clear enough to emphasize the masculinity and femininity cultural dimension. Let me rephrase again and make sure you guys understand and I express myself correctly. We do understand that there are societies in which there is no equity. There's no gender equity. We understand that perfectly well. We also understand there are societies in which men have most of the power, yes. And we understand there are societies and cultures in which women don't even have the right to vote yet, okay, or their opinion is not that important. We understand that. However, do not only think that masculinity versus femininity in a cultural dimension has only to do with equity. It has also to do with the general culture of the country, meaning if this is a masculinity higher dimension culture, it's a dimension in which, regardless of the equity, the power is very important to win, to have a CEO position, to be the manager, to be the supervisor, to be the one who rules. It can be a woman. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. So it's about societies in general, and a feminine dimension, a more cultural dimension towards the femininity part. It's a society in which family is more important. The competition is not so important. It's more equity, more collectivism, etc. And that doesn't have to do with the equity, okay? I just want to make sure you understand. A masculinity, a society in which masculinity is stronger, it's those societies in which, regardless of the level of equity, power is important. Becoming a millionaire is important. Becoming number one, competition. Those are trends that characterize a masculine culture. And feminist cultures are more family tradition oriented. Again, regardless of the equity they may have between women or men in jobs, or I don't know if I'm making myself clear. So even, for example, Mexico, for example, it's actually very hard to say, because in many regions, for example, I don't know if you have heard this term in the case of people who, Emma and Lola, matriarcado. Do you know, have you heard this word before? Un matriarcado. Un matriarcado, which means like a motherhood family, or a motherhood society. Actually, in many families, and I bet many of your families del pueblo o allá de la sierra, in my case, I'm speaking of my own family, son matriarcados, donde it is grandma, the one who, you know, dictates what's going to be done in the whole family. I don't know if you have heard about these guys, or you know any family in which it's a matriarcado. What grandma says is what things get done, not grandpa, grandma. So again, these matriarcados, it's about power, and it's not necessarily, it's about power. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? I just want to make sure you all understand this. And again, if you're really interested in continue to study Hofstede's dimensions, I already told you, there are a lot of courses you can take online. I'm trying to find also if there are certifications or something that in the future might be interesting, but it's really, really interesting to just understand how different we are. Masculinity is about dominance. Yes, exactly. Power. It's about, yes, you said it. Femininity is more about values, about wellness, traditions, etc. And it's not necessarily about gender equity, okay? I just want to make sure you understand that. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and yes, it's important to emphasize, you know, in this culture, there's no equity, or in this culture, we're starting to learn to be more equal, but that doesn't have anything to do with the cultural dimension of a masculine or a feminine society, okay?